If you want to mute the track, you just press M. I don't even use the other ones here. I think if you press the microphone here, you can do voiceover record, which I may eventually start doing. Where are we? So I think that's probably about it. I think it's probably worth going to the rendering side now. Oh no, I know what I will show you. This won't actually relate to Quake, but I'm just going to drop in a video intro thumbnail like you see in the Turok 2 series. And I'm just going to simply drop in, any one will do, number 12. So I've imported those, imported that. And this is like a slow zoom in at the beginning of a video, which you see a lot of videos do this now. Let's just ripple this in. Let's make it say, I think the current tend to be 7 or 8 seconds. Some of them in the past have been a bit too long. So let's right click and ripple that in. What I then tend to do is to place this file, which is in this case a PNG file, or you can use a Photoshop file. So the Turok 2 file, I'm just going to left click and move it up there, because when I do a transition at the either end here, I don't want that to affect the transition here. So in a sense, you've got two video tracks, the video thumbnail, the video track itself, my microphone audio, and then the game audio. So and I will include also the background game footage, the N64 track I should say. I shall include that as well, but that will be using a program called Adobe Audition, which you may not have. I guess you could use something like Audacity, but I don't tend to use that these days. So the video track, never mind that it's not the right size, I normally upscale them. In fact, I suppose it would help if I imported the correct size, wouldn't it? Alright, let's import this one instead. Makes it a bit easier. And you have to wait for it to... there we are. It wants me to merge the layers. I do. And it loads it. I'll quickly delete this one here. Don't need that. And we don't need that. But we want this one. So that is the video track. This is in 1440p. Which is what we want. The one I did actually initially drop in was the thumbnail for the you know, what you see when you go to click on it. So if I right click on that, I'm going to set the speed duration. Let's go back to before, make it 8 seconds like last time, and that fits precisely where I know the next sequence starts. So if I just press play here, all you're going to get is just a static image for 8 seconds, which is boring really. I mean, it's alright the first time you see it, but you know, if you watch the next part of the series, 8 to 10 seconds is quite a long time. I certainly wouldn't want to sit through 8 to 10 seconds of just a static image like that. So what I do is, first of all, I'm going to go to my effects tab here, and I'm going to use the cross dissolve. Drag that in. Let's widen this a bit. And I'm going to set the duration of this to say, I can't make it too long, because if I have it fade in over a too long a period of time, then the actual video thumbnail will have expired. So if I make it say 2.5 seconds, and as you can see, that does make quite a dent into the length of that. It's already over a quarter of the length of that video transition, of that video thumbnail I should say. And then I want to go dip to black at the end and drag that in there. This is a very useful transition, dip to black. I use it at the end of the video sequence as well, to fade out the videos. So let's make that say 3 seconds, I don't know. That'll do. So at the moment it's slightly better, but it's still not quite what I want. This is how it looks at the moment. It fades in quite quickly, I might add, and then it fades out rather fast. but it's an improvement on what we had before. So what I'm going to do here, and this is something that I've started doing some time ago now, is this sort of slow sort of camera zoom. So what I do is I just find the bit where if someone was watching and they could see the Turok 2 image and the number of the part 5, I want to get to the point where that's not visible, and usually that's either right at the beginning, 0 frame in, or maybe the first frame. So I'll take the first frame here. I've just clicked that once to the right to step forward 1 frame, and then I'm going to left click on this FX grey counter here. Remember, I mentioned that earlier on. You get them on all of the tracks that you see. And in the top left corner you'll see a video effects panel, and what you want to do is to click scale to set what's called a keyframe, and you'll see a little diamond appear there. That's a keyframe. That means that this is the point, this 1 frame in, this is the point where something changes, something happens. It's a significant frame in this project. What I'm going to now do is move this along and go to where it just about fades out, and as you can see it's about 3/4 or so, or 80% of the way through this 8-second sequence, and that's the point where I want to put in the next keyframe. So I'm now just going to click once on with the left mouse button on this keyframe icon. That's where the first one is. We want one to go there, so if I click there it appears. But nothing's going to be any different unless we set a scale. So once you've done that, what you want to do is alter the 100, and for the purposes of this video let's make it 110, which makes it quite pronounced so you can see it clearly. And then if we go back and then press play once again, you can see that the zooming in effect that you see on so many YouTube videos is there. And that's what I do with the video intro. I haven't bothered with the Quake series. I did struggle to find an image that I really liked to drop in, and I kind of wanted to experiment and not use one for a change, so that's why I haven't included one. I don't think it's going to make the blindest bit of difference about getting more views. With such a saturated subject as gaming, it would make no difference whatsoever. So I want to go to the end of the video here. I'm going to go to the go to out pointer and just click there, or you can, as it says, press Shift and O, which I've never actually done before, but let's do that. And this is the end of the video that you're probably familiar with, where you see the number of secrets I've got, and in this case a rare instance of me getting all the kills. And I want to make it go dark at the end, so I'm going to select the dip to black. It varies quite a lot how often, how much I tend to use on here, but it'll say, let's make it make it 8 seconds, just for what the hell. And I'll probably be rabbiting at the end of it or something, and then it will slowly fade away. And there you have it. So it actually gets dark before the very end. It isn't sort of snugly fit, so as you get to the last frame it then hits pitch black. It actually gets there beforehand. Sometimes I like that, sometimes not so. The audio I tend to fade out, not in accordance with the video. I tend to start the audio fading out a bit later on, so let's say there's no actual oh, I've muted the commentary, so if I turn that back on, I don't know if I speak at the end here. I don't think I do. No, it doesn't make any difference. But let's apply the exponential fade to the game audio, which I do want to fade out. So let's make it, I don't know, let's make it 3 3.5 seconds. And you can just experiment with this until you're happy with how it sounds. Sometimes, depending where you've last recorded, it doesn't sound quite as much as, as good as you would like. There's been a few Turok 2 videos where it starts and ends a bit abruptly for my tastes, but it's okay, it's alright. I've seen better, I've seen worse. So let's just start there. And about now. And as you can see, that's I just pressed play by accident there, and it starts the whole sequence again. But as you can see at the end there, that's how I fade out. So you've got an idea of fading out, fading in, doing a keyframe there. I have done keyframes and sort of zooms in the game before, very, very rarely, but I have done them. I did one in a Stalker video, which I was actually quite proud of, because, but I shouldn't think anyone's even seen it, because it was a playthrough with no commentary. But it was just where I was walking past a dead enemy humanoid in the game, and I hadn't noticed that there was one still alive, but had got stuck, and he was quite near me, but he wasn't shooting at me, and I just happened to notice it when I was editing the video. So I did a keyframe sequence, and I found out how to put an arrow on the screen and zoom in and stuff like that. And it's the little touches like that that help you learn and make you produce better content. So the next thing I want to show you, and I think probably the last thing, is something I've only done a couple of times myself, and that's where I want to include some music in the background of the video. I've done it in a couple of mod tutorials. I did it in possibly did it in the Clear Sky one. I did do it in the System Shock 2 one, and again, adding music in the background makes the video more appealing, and is very common. You tend to see it and hear it a lot in videos these days. So I thought it was about time that I learned how to do that. So what I'm going to do is just minimize this, close that. I want to find my PSX Doom, which is the PlayStation Doom music, and the Quake 64 music. Now, for those of you wondering, yes, I have bought and paid for this. Right, so the particular track for where is it? Necropolis. It's called Soul Eaters, so it sounds a bit like this. So that's the one I'm going to use. Now, the thing is, I could just drop and drag this in. It's an MP3 file. Not as good quality, I think, as WAV, which in turn I don't believe is as good quality as FLAC or something like OGG. But what I have been doing is, if I want to say improve the quality, although I probably can't tell the difference, to be honest with you, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to I can open it directly into Adobe Audition, or I can just drop it into the editor. I think I'm going to drop it into the editor just for convenience. Let's go back to Project Q3. If you want to make some room so you can put things in there with ease, you can just, all I'm doing is hovering the mouse over this line. I'm not even touching the mouse at the moment. I'm then going to hold down the left mouse button, and then I'm going to raise it. And I'm just going to drag and drop this track in here, which is Soul Eaters for the Necropolis game level. And that will import very, very quickly, because it's only a very short track. Now, this is all very well. I can just drag and drop it along here, and you think, well, what's the problem? Well, there isn't one really. But as you can see, if I go far enough, the track ends. So what we need to do is to make a loop, so that this green audio track, which is independent of the actual video and other audio tracks, so it carries on right to the end of your sequence. So this goes on for about, I mean, I would edit it normally down to about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes, but this is currently about half an hour. So what I'm going to do is just right click on this track here, and I'm going to go to edit clip in Adobe Audition. And it takes a little bit of time to render and sort itself out, but it won't take as long as the video side of things. Okay, so we've got it here in Adobe Audition. It's the MP3 file, but it's not long enough. We need to create a loop. So I'm just going to click multi-track at the top there, and it will give you various parameters that you can change here. I'm just going to call it, say, let's just call it Q3A, A for audio. Doesn't really matter what we call it. Folder location is as is. Template, I've never even touched that. I don't know really what to suggest there. The sample rate, I'm a little bit vague on this, but I found that making it 48 somehow seems to work out better in the long run. I can't really comment too much on that. It just seems that when I set it to 44,100, which is what the actual sample is, this here, it wasn't as happy with that, which doesn't make sense. You would think it would be happier that I've set it at the actual source value, but for some reason I had a slight hiccup. Whether or not it was me, I don't know. Bit depth and stereo I'm just going to leave. I'll click OK, and what happens then is below the MP3 track you get another kind of file, another audio file, which is called SESX, which until I've only been doing this about a week, until trying this I've never even seen that file before. What I tend to do is click on the MP3 and I drag and drop it in, and here we are. We get the message, the sample rate of the inserted file, blah blah blah, does not match the sample rate of the session. Press OK to make a copy of the file, which will then be conformed to match the sample rate. For some reason, going through this hoop works out better than actually selecting the correct sample rate to begin with. But I haven't tested that enough, so I can't really say much there. So the first thing we want to do is to right click on this track and select loop. What I'm going to do now is, if you moved your pointer to the right at the very end, which as we know is about 11 and a half minutes nearly, you'll see like an arrow and a bridge going over it. What you want to do is, I'm not entirely sure if that's actually related to what I'm about to do, but that's kind of the good thing. If you see that, you're on the right lines. I then left click and hold it down, and I'm going to drag my mouse to the right and extend the length of this audio track to roughly what the length of my whole sequence is in Premiere Pro, which is about 30 to 31 minutes. Now it will go quite fast, so be warned, and then when you find the amount you want, let's just go slightly over. Let's just say accidentally we make it 33 minutes. It should snap into place quite nicely. Let go of your mouse button, and basically you've done it. We want to save this file, so I'm going to export. You can just save first, and then you want to export to Premiere Pro. I guess you could try one of these. I'm not sure what would happen though. I haven't actually tried that myself, but exporting to Premiere Pro seemed the logical next step. And this is the beauty of it. XML file is recognized by Premiere Pro, and then you just go to export, and as you can see, the audio doesn't take long at all. It's nearly finished, and that's done. Then it actually exports it into Premiere Pro. You just press OK, and as you can see in this track here, our audio track now says 33 minutes, not 11 minutes 22 seconds, which is what we want. So I'm going to get rid of this track here, which is the original music audio, clear that. I'm going to left click once there, just drag it up to the next line so it's all bunched up together nice and neatly. And I'm going to go, let's say we're happy with the project now at the end, but we don't want this end bit, so I'm going to cut this off. And you'll find just moving this up here, you get a lovely line up here, which is hard not to see really, and you just click, left click once, right click on this bit here, which is the bit that you're going to lop off, clear. So that's how you loop an audio track in Adobe Audition. Do some transitions, do a video sort of intro thumbnail if you like, not a thumbnail, sorry, I keep saying that, I've been saying it throughout the whole video, but that's how you do a video intro. I better rip all this in. And if I was to play the first beginning, say, minute of it, actually I need to have it there, don't I? If I was going to play the first sort of minute of it, I probably would do things like alter the strength of the audio. So as you probably are aware, if I just lock these for a sec, if I lock that as well, my microphone audio track is currently, actually I've got it increased it to plus 23 decibels because I have my microphone recording level very low, simply because I was just so fed up and frustrated with the last microphone. Yes, I could have probably turned it down, but I still think you would have got too many audio artifacts in there. So I tend to have it very low in the editor, then I turn it up to 23 or 20 or 15 or 25 tends to be the highest I go. Now I'm just going to play this for a moment and we'll see if the game or the music audio and the game audio drowns out my voice. It might do, in which case I'll have to tweak these a little bit. Okay, here we are in Castle of the Damned. So 42 monsters and only 3 secrets in this one. Well, it sounded pretty okay to me. I think I can hear a bit of distortion in the music track, so what I could do is, I don't know why I've locked those because this track's independent. It doesn't actually make any difference whether I unlock these or not. If I want to isolate one of those, then I have to lock the others. But this I can just right click whenever I want and it'll do it. If I go to audio gain, I think for the last Quake video I lowered the game music by 8 decibels, I think. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, here we are in Castle of the Damned. See the video chopping about a bit, but so what's new? 42 monsters and only 3 secrets in this one. Just realised I imported the wrong audio track, but it doesn't matter. It could be any musical track for this video. The purposes of this video really doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm actually playing the Necropolis track for the Castle of the Damned, but never mind. So the main thing is I haven't done it in the actual proper release, but that sounds better anyway. That sounds okay, and that tends to be how I start. I tweak and I adjust things as I go along, and that's the way I make a video, basically, a playthrough video. Now the last thing we would need to cover is the rendering process, and this is something that I had to learn from trial and error. I don't know if I'm doing it perfectly, but I'm happy with the quality overall. So once you're ready to render your video, I used to press Control M which was my sort of set. I think it's the Control M, which takes you to the media encoder. But that's my key set up for shadow play now, so I tend to, just out of laziness, go to export media. And this is where you can minimize no, you can't minimize it yet, I'm talking rubbish. You go to the actual main export settings, and this is what I've got as my current settings. When you look at Google's recommendation for videos, and I forget what it was, but it was something like, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but something like, say, 1080p video, the bitrate wants to be something like, I don't know, 8,000, you know, something like that. That is just not enough. It's going to look really, it might be okay when things are static, when things aren't moving about much, but trust me, through experience, I know if you want a good quality video, you've got to record with a high bit rate, as long as you're happy with the performance, because that will impact performance as well. Record with a high bit rate, and then you want to render with a high bit rate as well. So I've got some settings that I've done earlier. So copy of best 1440p settings March 2017 is the one I've done. And render at maximum depth, render at maximum render quality, variable bitrate 2 pass. I would be happy to use constant bitrate, but it's only 1 pass, I believe. So variable bitrate here, 2 pass. And my knowledge is a bit flaky here, but this is where I think you don't want to set the bitrate higher than what your recording bitrate was. That said, and it's only now that I think of it while I'm talking into the microphone, this would apply if I was recording in Shadowplay, which would be 130. But I record at OBS, which is set to a 50,000. So I'm assuming that 127,000 would it be? That's way over 50,000. So I haven't had any corruption or artifacts or stuttering, but that's what I've read before. I've read that if you set the rendering bitrate to higher than the recording one, that can cause a problem. I don't know how true that is, but I find that when I tend to go much above here, it can cause a problem. I guess that may be down to my CPU not being able to keep up, my GPU, which helps the rendering as well. It's a fairly quick rig, but it's not like ultra fast. It's not a, you know, an i7 6950X or whatever it is, or a top of the range Intel Xeon processor. Everything else pretty much I leave. Frame rate is 60, which is what we want. Field order, I understand field order, it should be progressive, so I leave it. There's a lot of settings here I don't tinker with because I just don't know. At the end of the day, if it works, why try and fix it? Aspect ratio, square pixels is 1, I believe you want that. TV standard, I don't know whether or not I should swap to PAL. I don't actually know. Europe and Asia, well, I guess that covers me in depending from which perspective you're looking at, I suppose, but I guess I am in Europe, so to speak. But there's also PAL, which covers, I don't know which is what really matters there. I'm at a loss what to say there, but that's what it was set to, I think. The profile high, I don't actually know, and I've yet to test this, whether or not it's going to make much difference whether I go to main or baseline. Sometimes upping these settings doesn't really improve the quality much, but does lengthen the encoding time dramatically. So again, I can't really offer you much advice there, but I've currently got it set to high, and the level I have to the maximum, which is 5.2. I haven't really noticed it look much worse until you could drop it down quite a way, so perhaps I could lower it down to 5 or 5.1, maybe even 4.2, I don't know, but I leave it at 5.2. The highest OBS seems to go to is 5.1. So the source is there, the output is going to be 1440p, 60 FPS, progressive we want, variable bitrate 2 pass, which makes it a bit sharper, target bitrate, the audio is here, that's the audio format and the codec. I very rarely adjust this. I have the bitrate set to as high as it can go, and I have no reason to change that. That seems to be good. Stereo obviously, And that's about it. There's not much else. The format is H.264. I don't know if YouTube supports H.265 fully yet, but this seems to be, I'm very happy with the video quality that I give. It's the audio that I'm learning about more now. And once you've finished setting your settings, you can go to export, but I go to Q, which means that if you press Q, then it will allow you to minimize this and use your PC for other things like watching a film or going on a forum or watching stuff on YouTube. Make sure you render your video preferably to another drive, not your main operating system drive. I didn't used to, it's only recently I've started doing this, but it can make a difference to the rendering times and the overall performance while you're rendering. So somebody on the forum I go onto kept saying this in various threads, and I didn't take much notice, and then one day I just tried it and it worked. I think it was a video called Radiophobia that I did for Stalker, and it was a very long video. I think the rendering time would have been over 8 hours, which is just not practical. There's not many videos I'm going to do at that length because it's just painful. I've only got one system. I haven't got a second rendering system, so which I would like. I would like to drop in a little small form factor PC and get something like a Ryzen 1600X with a, I don't know, an RX 470 or an RX 460 and get that to render the video. That would be great, but that's just not really possible right now. But until I swapped over, when I was doing that Radiophobia video, it was taking forever, and then I swapped it to the right drive. I think this goes to my E drive rather than my C drive, and the rendering time did drop. Whether that was a fluke, I don't know, but it did drop by, I think it dropped down to about 6 hours, which is still a long time to render, but it's a lot better than 8 or 9 hours. So I don't know, that's what happened anyway. So obviously in this situation I'm not going to render it because I've done it before. I've actually uploaded part 3 some days ago, and after this video I'm going to edit this one, and then I will probably after that start looking at doing a game mod installation, and then continue with Turok 2 and Quake, and hopefully this has been of some help to you. Let me know your feedback. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and join me next time in something else. Cheers for now.